Live in a world that's just drowning in information, opinions, and, well, noise. So today, we're asking a really fundamental question. How do we cut through all of that and figure out what's actually true? We're going to break down the rules that researchers use to separate solid facts from simple beliefs.
So let me ask you this directly. How do you know? When you hear something, what's the difference between it being a real, verifiable fact versus just someone's opinion or something they believe? What makes a piece of information truly trustworthy? Let's figure it out.
To really get to the bottom of that, we can't just start with the facts themselves. We've got to go one level deeper. We have to start at the very beginning, with the big ideas that shape how we even think about knowledge in the first place. This is the philosophy behind the facts. And that brings us to this big word, epistemology. I know, it sounds kind of academic, right? But stick with me because it's actually a pretty simple idea. It's the study of knowledge itself. It forces us to ask these huge, fundamental questions like, what does it even mean to know something? And how can we ever be sure we're actually right? So how do we answer those big questions? Well, one really powerful idea is something called positivism. Basically, it's the principle that our most solid, reliable knowledge doesn't come from a gut feeling or an old belief. Nope. It comes from stuff we can actually see, measure, and test scientifically. Think about a company using hard data to make a decision instead of just going with what the boss feels is right. That's positivism in action. Okay, so if we're going to lean on these scientific methods, what makes them so strong? What makes them trustworthy? Well, it really boils down to two critical principles. You can think of them as the twin guardians standing at the gate of all good research. First up is reliability, and this one's super simple. It's all about consistency, right? If you do the same experiment over and over again under the exact same conditions, do you get the same result every single time? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, your measurement is reliable. But hold on, consistency isn't the whole story. I mean, what if you're consistently wrong? That's where our second guardian, validity, comes into play. Validity asks a totally different and maybe even more important question. Are you even measuring what you think you're measuring?
Okay, here's the absolute best way to get this. Picture a thermometer, right? And this thermometer always reads 75 degrees, no matter what. So, is it reliable? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's super consistent. But is it valid? Well, if the room is actually 60 degrees, then no way. A valid thermometer is one that actually tells you the real temperature. And for any good research, you gotta have both. It's non-negotiable. All right, so we've got our philosophical foundation set. Now, let's get practical. Let's actually open up the researcher's toolkit and see what's inside, and look at the actual pieces they use to build a study from the ground up. And honestly, the best way to picture this is to think about Lego blocks. Seriously, each one of these concepts we're about to talk about is like a different shaped block. Each one has a very specific job. And if you want to build something solid, a real scientific claim that won't fall over, you have to know how they all click together. So, let's build something. Let's say we're doing a customer study. The first block you need is your unit of analysis. That's just a fancy way of saying who or what are you studying. In our case, it's the customer. Simple. Next, you need the concept, the big, abstract idea you're interested in, like customer satisfaction. But satisfaction is kind of fuzzy, right? So you need a variable, something you can actually measure, like a customer's income level, to try and get a handle on it. Okay, so you've got your blocks. Now what? How do you connect them to actually test something? Well, that's what a hypothesis is for. And this is so important. A hypothesis isn't just some wild guess. It's a very specific, testable statement about how you think things are connected. Something like, higher customer satisfaction increases sales. Boom! Just like that, your whole project has a clear mission. So, we've got our blueprint, the hypothesis. We've got our Lego blocks. Now it's time to actually start building. Let's talk about how we take the raw material of data and turn it into something real, something with actual meaning. And there's this really cool progression to it. You start at the bottom with just raw data. Think of a messy spreadsheet of daily sales numbers. Kind of useless on its own, right? But then you organize it into a monthly report. Now you have information. It has some context. Then you look for patterns in that information. And that's when you create knowledge, real insight. And that knowledge is what lets you make a smart decision, like launching a whole new strategy. So where does all this raw data come from? Well, researchers have two main ways of gathering it. The first is quantitative research. Think quantity. This is all about numbers. How many, how often. The other way is qualitative research. Think quality. This is about the why. It's about digging into people's stories and experiences to understand the context behind the numbers. And here's another thing. Measurement itself isn't one size fits all. You can measure things in different ways with different levels of precision. Sometimes you're just putting things into categories like male or female. Other times you're ranking things, like in a race. And sometimes you need super precise scales, like for temperature or weight. All you really need to remember is that how you measure something really affects what you can say about it later on.
Okay, so we've gone from philosophy to tools to data. Let's bring it all home. Let's talk about the grand finale, the whole point of doing all this work, building real, solid conclusions about how our world actually works.
After all that rigorous work, what you can end up with is a theory. Now, I have to stop here because this is so important. When we say theory in everyday life, we mean like, oh, I have a theory about why my car is making that noise. It's just a guess. In science, a theory is the opposite of a guess. It's a huge, powerful explanation, backed by tons of evidence, that shows how a whole bunch of different facts are all connected. And then, at the very top of the mountain, the absolute peak of scientific certainty, you have a law. A scientific law is something that has been tested and tested and tested again a million different ways, and it holds up every single time. It's as close to a universal truth as we can get. Think about the law of gravity. It just works.
All right, let's do a quick recap of the whole journey. We started with the really big picture, right? Epistemology, just asking, how do we know what we know? And positivism, the idea that we need real, observable evidence. Then we got to the two golden rules. Any measurement has to be both reliable, which means it's consistent, and it has to be valid, which means it's accurate. From there, we looked at the actual tools of the trade, making a testable hypothesis, using the right kind of measurement, and climbing that ladder from raw data all the way up to actionable knowledge. And we saw that by using both numbers-based and story-based research, this whole rigorous process is what lets us build an understanding of the world we can actually count on. So there you have it. That's the rule book for how we build knowledge today. But here's the thing I want you to walk away with. This rule book didn't just appear out of nowhere. People fought over these ideas. They debated them and tested them for centuries. So the real question is, how did we get these rules? And are they ever going to change? That sounds like a story for another time.
Follow us now to watch the next video and complete the series.